Welcome back to Mr. DuPage's classroom. Today we're going to go over linear graphs and equations review. This is for my Algebra 2 class for August 5th, Friday, August 5th. So let's get right into the lesson.
Like I said before, this lesson is for the date August 5th. Please make sure you have that on the date line. Linear equation, slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the simplest way for us to use an equation to make a line on a graph. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. In the slope-intercept form, our m value is our slope, and our b value is our y-intercept. Okay, talking about slope. Slope is the change in y over the change in x. Another easier way to think about that is our rise, our up and down movement, over our run, our left and right movement. Again, our slope is our m value. Again, our b value is our y-intercept. What the y-intercept is that is where our graph will cross the y-axis. If you look down at problem number 1, our y-axis is this vertical line, and our x-axis is this horizontal line. So when I talk about the y-axis, it'd be that, and the x-axis would be there. Looking at the 4 lines that we have here. The first line, we always want to start thinking about our lines on the left-hand side. So I start there. As I move, I'm moving up. I'm getting larger. If that's the case, then my slope is actually a positive slope. Okay? The second line, I start on the left-hand side, like I said. As I move, I'm going down, so it's getting smaller. That would be a negative slope. You can think about walking up a hill or down the hill. And when you're walking uphill or a positive slope like number 1, it takes more work to go, so more energy. And if you look at number 2, you're going downhill, it takes less energy. Okay? The next line is a straight horizontal line. As you move from left to right, there is no vertical movement. We're not going up or down. So in this case, there is no slope. It doesn't take any more or any less energy. So there's no slope. If I have no slope, that means that my m value is actually 0. Anytime I multiply something by 0, it becomes 0. So if my m value is 0, think about our original equation. Mx actually means m times x. Would I need to write y equals 0 plus b? Or couldn't I just write y equals b? I could just write y equals b. So our equation would just turn into y equals b for a horizontal line. Vertical line. I don't really have a left or a right to start at. If I don't have a left or a right to start at, how can I figure out a slope? Well, you can't, because in a vertical line, it's actually an undefined slope. It's an undefined slope. And if it's an undefined slope, then I don't have an m. And my m has just completely disappeared. I don't have a numerical value for it. In that case, then our equation will just turn into x equals something. We will talk about an undefined slope, a vertical line, here in a few minutes. Looking at our table. You could use a table to make a line graph if you wanted to. We're not going to use that as much, but I'll quickly talk about how it would work. The first thing you'd want to do is you would want to put your y-intercept in the middle for your y value. Your y-intercept is your b value. If you think about the y-intercept, what is my x value when I cross the y-axis? Well, my x value when I cross the y-axis would just be 0. There is no left or right at the y-axis. Remember how I talked about rise over run is my slope? Well, to move to the right, I would actually take my rise, and I would add my rise going to the right. Add my rise going to the right. Again, my rise is my numerator. That is my numerator. If I'm going to the left, I would subtract my rise and subtract my rise. Again, so I'm adding my numerator going to the right, subtracting my numerator going to the left. For my x values, those are actually my runs, my left to right movement. So I would actually add my run or my denominator, add my run or my denominator, subtract my run. subtract my run. So that quickly talks about how you could make a table if you wanted to. But let's move on to how I believe is an easier way to go ahead and graph a line graph using y equals mx plus b form. First thing I want to look at is my b value or my y-intercept. In problem number 1, where is my b value? It is this positive 2. So my b value is positive 2. We'll talk about what that means in a second. Where is my slope or my m value? My m value is this positive 3 over 2. That's one way to write it. I also want to write it with a negative in my numerator. I'll explain why in one second. But if I wanted to write this as a negative in my numerator, I would have to divide by a negative to keep it the same. A negative numerator divided by a negative denominator will give me a positive number. So those two fractions are actually the same. I'll explain why we want to use two fractions in 1 second. So now, to actually graph this, I want to go to my y-intercept first. I'm looking at my y-axis. So I need to go to positive 2 on the y-axis. This is 0. So if I go up 1, 2, that is my y-intercept. You are done with your b value now. You don't have to worry about the b value anymore. The next thing I need to look at is my slope, my m value. I want to use the two different fractions independent of one another. The first fraction tells me that my rise is 3. So I'm going to start at my y-intercept, go up 3. My run is 2. So my right to left movement is 2. If it's positive, that means I'm going to move to the right. So 1, 2. There is my second point on my line graph. The other fraction I have is a negative movement. I need 1 point to the right of my y-intercept and 1 point to the left of my y-intercept in order to make a line. So using my second fraction, this fraction here, I'm going to go down 3 from my y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3. My run is a negative, so I need to go to the left. 1, 2. As you can see on that x-axis, you have positive and negative numbers. That should help you figure out which direction you need to move if it's a positive or negative run. So there's the third point for my line. Now all I need to do is connect those points with a straight line. If you have a ruler, which I hope you do, you can make your line look a lot nicer than I can freehanding up here. Now those arrows are very important. A line never ends. So we need to have those arrows to signify that. If you do not have those arrows, then you're saying that the line would just end wherever you end your line. That's all you have to do in order to graph a line graph. So let's move on to number 2. What's my b value? My b value is positive 3. What is my slope? My slope is this negative 2. Uh-oh, I don't have that written as a fraction. How can you write any whole number as a fraction? All you have to do is put it over 1, so I'd have negative 2 over 1. That would give me one direction. I need the other direction as well, so I'm going to make it a positive 2 over a negative 1 to keep the fraction the same. Those two fractions mean exactly the same thing. Now, to actually graph this, I need to look at my y-intercept. So there's my y-axis. I go up from 0, 1, 2, 3. There's my y-intercept. My first fraction of my slope is negative 2 over 1. So I start at my y-intercept. I'll have to go down 2. My 1 is positive, so I need to move to the right one. There is my second point. Now if I look at my second fraction, my rise is positive, so I need to go up. So 1, 2. My run is negative, so I need to go to the left. There's my third point. All we have to do now is connect the 3 points with a line. Don't forget your arrows. Hopefully at this point this is getting fairly simple for you. This is a review from Algebra 1. Number 3, I have something missing. Right now I have y equals m and x, but I do not have a b value. If you do not have a b value, what you need to do is you need to add a 0. A 0 will be your placeholder for our b value. As you write equations, you do not need to write in zeros or a 1 in front of a variable. That's why it is not there right now. So first thing that we've always looked at, what is my y-intercept? Well, it is 0, so b equals 0. What is my slope? It is negative 3 over 5. How I want to write that to start with, because we're always using two fractions, I will give the numerator the negative the first time, and then I will give the denominator the negative the second time. Again, those two fractions mean exactly the same thing. In order to graph this, I need to go to my y-intercept, which is 0. So looking at the numbers on your y-axis, where would 0 be? It'd be right there. My first fraction says it's a negative movement, so I start at my y-intercept and go down 3. 1, 2, 3. It is a positive run, which means I need to go to my right from that point. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my second point on my graph. My second fraction is a positive 3 over a negative 5. I'm going to start at the y-intercept, go up 3, and my run is a negative, so I need to go to the left 5. What's the last step? Well, the last step is to just connect those 3 points. Looking at number 4, there's something missing on number 4 as well. Well, what's missing on number 4 is my slope. If you remember from Algebra 1, if there is nothing in front of a variable, there's always something actually hidden there. What is it? It is a 1. Okay, so you can go ahead and just write that 1 in there. We're going to look at our y-intercept first. That's our b value. So that's negative 3. What is my slope or my m value? It is 1 over 1. Remember, I also need to have a second fraction. In order to write a second fraction to be negative 1, well, to keep those the same, I also need the denominator to be negative 1. Let's graph our y-intercept. Starting at 0, 0, I go down 3. There is my y-intercept. Looking at our first fraction, our rise is 1, so I go up 1. My run is positive 1, so I go right 1. There's my second point. Let's look at our second fraction. The rise is negative, so I need to go down 1. And the run is negative, so I need to go left 1. There's my third point. All I have to do at this point is connect those 3 points with a line. That is how we are going to graph lines based off of the equation. The next thing we're going to look at is actually writing the equation based off of the graphed line. If you did not understand this part at this point, I would go back and try to rewatch the video. If you still do not understand, you can always ask and I will help you in class. Write the slope-intercept form of the equation of each line. What is slope-intercept form? Well, slope-intercept form will be y equals mx plus b. Remember that our b value is our y-intercept and our m value is our slope. So looking at problem number 1, I need to find my y-intercept. Where does it cross our y-axis? It crosses right here. Looking at the numbers on our y-axis, what value would that have? In this case, the value that would have would be 0. So our b value is 0. The next thing we need to figure out is our m value, our rise and our run. I always look at a point on the graph to the right of the y-intercept. That way my denominator will always be positive. I don't have to worry about having to change my fraction around. In this case, there's a point right here to the right of my y-intercept that crosses at a perfect intersection. This makes it very easy to figure out what my slope is. All I have to do is count up from my y-intercept, 1, 2, 3, and then count right or left from there. In this case, it's to the right. Well, up is a positive movement. That means I've gone up 3. I went to the right one place, which means that that is a positive movement, so my slope is 3 over 1. Now that I have my b value and I have my m value, I can plug them into the original equation. So y equals, what is my m value? It is 3 over 1. We put an x in there. And then what is my b value? My b value is 0. From Algebra 1 and every other math you've ever done, if I have 3 divided by 1, what is that actual number? Well, it's just 3. So I could rewrite this equation as 3x. Do I really need to write that it's plus 0? Well, there's not going to change anything about my equation, is it? So I do not need to write plus 0. You could just write it in this form. That is how you're going to see it most often. I would take the other form as well, though. Or I would allow you to write 3x plus 0. That is fine with me as well. Number 6, we have a straight horizontal line. From our original talk, we said that that will have no slope. That means that my slope is going to be 0. Makes this pretty easy at that point, as long as you can remember that that means slope is 0. Where is my y-intercept? Look at the y-axis. It crosses right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my b value would be positive 4. All we have to do at this point is write our equation. So y equals 0 x plus 4. If you remember from Algebra 1, anytime I multiply something by 0, which would be this case right here, 0 times x, that would just end up being 0. So I could rewrite this as y equals 0 plus 4 if I wanted to. Would I really need to write that as y equals 0 plus 4? Actually, you can answer this problem right now. What does y equal? Y equals 4. This is the form you're going to see most often. I would take that form as well, though. Do not give me y equals 0 plus 4. If you do that, you did not finish or write the equation in simplest form. Let's look at number 7. What's the first thing we need to find? We need to find our y-intercept. That's right here. So we've gone from 0, we went up 1, 2. So our b value would be positive 2. Looking at a point to the right of our y-intercept, one that will cross perfectly over an intersection. I have one right here. So what is my rise in this case? Well, from my y-intercept, I have gone down 1. So that's a negative 1 rise over. I went to the right 1, which means that I have a positive run of 1. Final step is just to write it in an equation. So y equals negative 1 over 1 x plus 2. I will take it written in that form. However, do you have to write negative 1 over 1? Anytime you have a number over 1, it can just be written as what? Well, it can be written as y equals negative 1x. Sorry, that should be in red. Negative 1x plus 2. Also, looking right here, that's 1 times x. Do I need to write the 1? No, because the answer is just going to be x. So I could write this as negative x plus 2. This is the form you're going to see most often. I would take that form or that form for our purposes. Finally, number 8. We have a straight vertical line. If you remember from the front sheet, the review that we did, if we have a straight vertical line, what is my slope? My slope will actually be undefined. Because my slope is undefined, this is going to change our equation. If you remember from the front as well, that means it's going to be x equals something, right? Do I have a b value at this point? Do I have anywhere that crosses the y-axis? No, I don't. So you can just write none for your b value. Well, in this case, I need to find, in order to write what x equals, I'm going to find where it crosses the x-axis. It crosses the x-axis right here. What value is that for x? If I start at 0, 1, 2, so it would be -2. And that would be your final answer.
That concludes our review of linear equations and graphs. The most important things to remember here, our y equals mx plus b form, our slope-intercept form. That is the easiest way to find our slope and find our y-intercept. Remember that your slope is your m value and your y-intercept is your b value. And the last thing to remember is the direction of our line. If it starts on the bottom left and goes to the top right, then that will be a positive slope. If it starts on the top left and goes to the bottom right, that would be a negative slope. If it is a straight vertical line, it is an undefined slope, and therefore our equation changes to just x equals something. If it is a straight horizontal line, then there is no slope, and our equation just changes straight to y equals something. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and thank you very much.